Hello there, wonderful humans. Welcome back to Board Game Dads. My name is Anthony, and you are right smack in the middle of our Mother's Day holiday special. This is part 3, and I'm super excited to be joined by Ambie of Board Game Blitz. Ambie, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me for a little bit today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited. If you don't know Ambie, she is. I just named her this before we started recording, the octopus of board gaming and social media, because she's in so many different areas that we will talk about as we go through this process. But she did agree to come on and celebrate Mother's Day with us here at the Board Game Dad. So thank you for that. We do have the main topic that we'll get to a little bit later on, but before that, we do have some little basic Q&A for Ambie here, so all of you can get to know her. If you don't know her already, the 50 some of you who subscribe to my channel, 29 of which are probably my friends and family, and the rest are just some poor unfortunate souls. So there's that. Ambie, I'd love to know sort of how you first got into board gaming. I'm assuming you probably were a kid that played some games with the family.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, been playing board games for as long as I remember. I think my parents have a lot of board games. They have a whole closet of board games, and we've had that since forever. When I was little, we would play games on, I think, Friday nights. We would play, maybe other nights too.
Okay.
And then also when we went camping, we would play Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, cool.
I don't know. It was like maybe the second edition or something back
That was
in
like
the day.
a campaign exclusive activity for you guys?
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
my dad was the DM, and this was when I was like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So I was a barbarian, and we would just tell him what we wanted to do, and like he would do the checks and stuff. And
Cool.
then like I remember keeping track of my gold and like my stats on a sheet. But yeah, so
how many of you were there in that? You have a lot of brothers and sisters?
No, just one brother and my
Okay.
mom.
Okay, cool.
So my mom was a dwarf thief, I think, and my brother was an elf. Yeah.
See, how cool is that you can remember those details, though, right? I mean, say what you will about D&D, but that's a memory that you can tell that story later. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's when you just said that about how your parents always had games, something just kind of occurred to me that there's such a difference now I mean, obviously the hobby is bigger than it was when you and I were young folks, but it's funny that, people had a closet full of board games, right? It was like, let's go play a board game, open the closet, I'll move this thing, and it's under here, and it's usually kind of dusty. Now they're on display in this, grandiose sort of, here's my collection for all to see. So it's an interesting change in the hobby for sure. So besides the origin of your sort of board gaming, which is great, by the way, that you've been involved with it that long, what about in terms of content creation? How did that journey first start? Like, what kind of came first? Because like I did joke, but in all honesty, you've got a podcast, you do videos for the Dice Tower, you do live streaming, you do song parodies, and there's more. So how did that all start?
So I had been in the board gaming hobby for a few years, and I liked doing song parodies. So in college, I did a bunch of song parodies with my friends, and then I missed singing. So like a couple years out of college, I was like, I want to make a song parody. And so I made one for Android Netrunner and posted it on YouTube. And then like I think I made 2 of them pretty close one after another. And then I was like, okay, that was fun. But then some people subscribed to my channel. So I was like, oh, I need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
This was back in like 2014 or something, 2013. Okay. I don't remember. But so I started doing song parodies like I published one every 2 weeks for like 3 years or something.
That's dedication.
Yeah, and I specifically did board game song parodies of Disney songs, which I kind of ran out and started.
Well, yeah, that makes it even harder. But that was such a narrow focus of category. It's amazing that you last 3 years, so that's great.
Yeah, but I slowed down after I started the podcast. So in 2016 is when we started the podcast Board Game Blitz. We actually met. Crystal and Cassidy were the other 2 co-hosts. Now it's just Crystal. but we met on Reddit in a thread, like talking about what was missing in podcasts. And one of the things was like, there aren't any women hosted board gaming podcasts. And we're like, oh, maybe I could do that. And like, we just threaded each other like, oh, I could do that too. And then we talked to each other and ended up starting Board Game Blitz.
That's
And
great.
so yeah, that was pretty cool. And at the same time, I started making videos too. So I had been telling my husband that he should make instructional videos that are quick, because like there was Watch It Played, and I think Gaming Rules was around then too. But those were all I'm have a short attention span, and I tend to talk quicker too. So like I put those videos on 2x speed and stuff, and my husband's pretty good at like quickly explaining games to people.
Okay.
And so he didn't want to do that. He's like, no, you should do it. I'm like, okay, fine. And so like I kind of started that at the same time as the podcast. And that's why we like named it Board Game Blitz, because the podcast was 30 minutes. And also like my videos were trying to be more concise and short.
Right. Yeah, well, besides the female representation, the length of the podcast is certainly something that I'm sure back then was.
Yeah, that was another thing.
Like, it was an hour. That was kind of like the standard.
Yeah. I think that was also in one of the Reddit threads saying like what was missing from podcasts. So we got a lot of inspiration from Reddit back then.
That's great. That's cool. And then what about in terms of, specifically the 18xx genre? I know that's big for you. How did you stumble into that?
Yeah, so we used to play a lot of we've always played a bunch of different types of games. Like we started off with Arkham Horror, and then we were getting into thematic Euro games is a lot of what I liked. And then in 2016, so this was like right after we started the podcast, we started playing 18xx, my husband and I. So our friend had an 18xx game, and he had played like a long time ago, but we were basically all playing together new. And we had heard about them, but like didn't really know much about them. And so we played with it. We really liked it. And then when my husband likes something, he like really gets into it. So he researches. So he researched down, like bought a bunch of games and was like, oh, we might like this one and this one. And then he was researching what you can do in the game. And so like we played again and again, and just developing different strategies and experimenting. And it was a lot of fun. So then like there wasn't much media about it then either. So actually like I talked about it some on the podcast, and then I started a thread on Reddit called Train Tuesday to talk about them. And I think that got a lot of people talking about 18xx games. And then like I started making videos for the Dice Tower, and I wanted to make more 18xx videos because there wasn't much about it. And so like I just want people to know what it is, because when I went into it, I was like, what is this? I don't know.
No, I only recently learned about it. And it was probably a good, I don't know, 6-7 years after I first got into the modern hobby that I even had heard of that category of games. So yeah, that's great that you found that little tiny niche that was something that people were looking for or didn't know they were looking for. That's awesome. So obviously your husband is a gamer as well. Now this is a special about Board Game Mom. So you are a mom to twins. And how are they doing in their board game development thus far? How old are they?
They're 18 and a half months old right now.
Oh, no, 18xx. That's awesome.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so they haven't like played any games by the full rules yet. But I do have a bunch of the Haba, my very first games. And I actually have a blog series on our website on Board Game Blitz where I'm talking about how I'm playing them with my kids, like house ruling them basically, because I kind of play with them as toys. And like some of them, you put some of the objects into like a box or something. That's the game. Like Hungry as a Bear, for example, is the
like
latest one.
Spoon
they have a spoon, and you're supposed to put it in the mouth, but like they can't. Actually, one of them is trying to put it on the spoon, and then like he's holding the spoon like this, so it just falls off. But then the other one can just like pick it up and put it in the mouth, and they're doing that.
So with their powers combined, they can play the game correctly.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not really like playing the whole game. They're just like putting it in the mouth, and then I'm like, yay, good job. But then they try to grab the box and stuff. So it's still heavily supervised and just mostly playing with the pieces.
Right.
When they first started playing, they were putting everything in their mouth too.
Sure.
So
Sure.
yeah,
I still do that now. I mean, I tasted the herb biscuit in Herbaceous a little while ago. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad that they are getting into it young. I'm trying to do the same with my son. He just turned 2, and he actually just did recorded an impromptu unboxing with him because
oh nice.
he had gotten my first orchard for Christmas, and we hadn't even taken the shrink wrap off yet. So he tore that open and took out all the big wooden fruits and things like that. So we'll try to get that one out to the table very soon.
Yeah, that one's good.
Last question before we get into our games here. What is your favorite part about being a mom?
I I like just seeing my kids grow and learn. It's just really exciting seeing them discover new things, and they're always so excited about it.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
something
like
we take for granted as
yeah,
adults.
like recently, one of them like made connections between the cow picture in a book and then like a cow thing we have, like a toy we have.
Mhm.
And so he kept running back and forth, like when we were showing the cow in the book, and then he runs to the other thing and points to it, and runs back to the book and points to it. He's like so excited.
Yeah, it's great to see that. It really is. Like
Yeah.
those are things that we just forget about because
Mhm.
you don't realize that there's so many things now that these little creatures are going to discover for the first time,
Yeah.
that we've done so many first, and they have so many more to come, and it's pretty crazy.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. So Ambie and I went back and forth a bit on what our main topic was going to be, and I'm really happy with where we ended up, especially now that we've talked about all the things that Ambie has done, specifically how Board Game Blitz is typically a 30-minute podcast, right? And so,
Mhm.
give or take, but we're focusing here on 30-minute games. We do both have toddlers running around. Well, Ambie's got 2 of them. I'll have a newborn in about 3 weeks. So there's that.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you. So a lot of times there's not so much time for gaming. I think a half hour is a nice, easily managed chunk of time that you can usually squeeze in if you can just sort of bear through it a little bit. And there's a ton of games that play well in about half an hour. So that's our focus for today.
Mhm.
We talked briefly about how arbitrary some of those suggested time numbers are on boxes. You said you looked on BGG, right, for your
Yeah.
playtime. Yeah, some of them are definitely a little bit overestimated, and I think some are underestimated, but we'll see how that goes. So we're going to go ahead and give Ambie the floor first. By the way, folks,
Mhm.
neither one of us know what each other are picking, so if there's crossover, we apologize in advance now. Ambie, what's your first pick?
My first pick is Codenames Duet. Also for my picks, I ended up doing ones that I play 2-player with my husband because
Right.
that's mostly what I've been playing since I've had babies.
Yes, so
So,
same here. Yes, you
yeah,
should have mentioned that. Yeah.
yeah. So that's why specifically Codenames Duet over Codenames. But also with Codenames Duet, so if you don't know, it's a word game where you're trying to guess. There's a grid of words, and each person has like some words that the other person is trying to guess, and it's cooperative. And you have to give one clue and a number to try to connect as many words as possible. And then there's words that you can't have them guess, or the game will end immediately. So in regular Codenames, it's a team-based game, and then you're going back and forth. But in Codenames Duet, it's cooperative, and you both are giving clues to the other person. So you're both thinking of clues, and I guess there's less downtime because
Sure.
you're always thinking of clues to give. Whereas with like the team-based one, there's just one person giving clues on each team, and everyone else is just waiting for them.
Right.
So
Yeah, that can be a little frustrating sometimes.
yeah, but yeah, I like those types of games.
So that one
When you're
comes
trying to
with,
like read their mind.
yeah, that's almost like a campaign of sorts ish, right? You go through like different
Oh
scenarios.
yes, kind of. It's like a very loose campaign. It
Right,
has
right,
like
right.
a map with different scenarios where it's just like you have this many turns and this many
Okay.
mistakes you can make,
Okay.
but
Okay.
there's no story to it.
Right. Well, we'll wait for the Codenames Legacy version, I guess.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I've never played that version duet. I should check it
Mhm.
out. We have 2 or 3 copies of Codenames here. It is a fun game. I like it. I think it's in a weird category. It was
Mhm.
billed, I think, as a party game when it first came out, and I guess it sort of is in that it's not really complicated. You can take it anywhere, and
Mhm.
there's not a whole lot of rules, but it's not because it has that downtime. It's not
Yeah.
that quick raucous like laugh it up party game. It's a little more strategic. But yeah, that's a great pick. I got to check that one out.
Mhm.
All right, so my first one here is an older game. I have the base game and 3 expansions, although there are many more that I do not have, and that's Dominion. This
Mm.
is arguably the first deck building game. Since then, there's been a ton of games that have done deck building in different ways, or like have it as a small part of a larger game. Dominion is just building your deck and trying to get the most points. Um, I tried to pick games that had a relatively also short kind of setup time, and Dominion is pretty quick. You just have to take out a bunch of cards. I'd argue that it's almost more tedious to put away than it is to kind of set up
That's true.
because you have to go through the now shuffle deck and go back and put all the card types in the right spot. Um, but especially with 2 players, you just have a hand of cards, and after a while, especially in the beginning of the game when you don't have that many cards, there's really not a lot of thinking. It's like, all right, I've got 4 coins. Boom. There's 2 things I can buy. I'm
Mhm.
gonna buy this one. Um, if a turn takes more than, I don't know, 30 seconds, it's because you have a few combinations that are, you know, sort of chaining together, letting you draw more and play a couple more cards. But overall, those turns are really fast. And because it has so much content, even with the only 3 expansions that I have not even played anywhere near, I'm sure, the total combinations that you can with this game, because I think every box has like 20 or 25 different like cards for the market area, and you only play
Yeah,
with
there's a
10
lot.
in a
Mhm.
game. So even in a base game, there's a lot of combinations. Are you a
Yep.
fan of this one?
Yeah, well, I haven't played it in a long time. It was
Yeah.
actually one of the games that got me into the modern board gaming hobby,
Oh,
and
okay.
I used to play a lot with my husband. Well, he was my boyfriend back then, but on online on Isotropic, which was a text base on. It got taken down, but like it was super fast, and so that kind of ruined physical shuffling for us.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
So we didn't play it in person like after
Huh,
that.
that's funny.
And then we got rid of our copy because like too much shuffling.
I think there is another. I think you can play Dominion online now as
Yeah.
well.
I think
Um,
the newest version is better. Like there were multiple new versions,
okay.
like multiple versions of it, and they weren't very good, but I think it's better now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that's really changed, right? For us over the last couple years, there's so many more ways
Mhm.
to play these games in general that you can even save some time on a game
Yeah.
that might be longer for setup, and the computer just
Mhm.
does all that work for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Ambie, what is pick number 2?
So pick number 2 is also a really quick setup. It's The Mind, which is
Ah,
a cooperative card game where you have cards numbered 1 through 100, and you each get a hand of cards. And in the first round, you have 1 card. In the second round, you have two cards, and you're trying to play them in order, but you can't. There's no turns, and you can't tell each other what cards you have in your hand. You can't talk about
mhm.
what cards you have in your hand. So you're just like, it's like more a timing thing. You're trying to think like, okay, I have this card, but like, should I play it yet, or maybe they have a card under us, and so it plays 2 to 4 players. But I played it a lot 2 players with my husband, and we got like super in sync.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that's really cool doing that, and it's really quick to play and easy. It's travelable. It's
Right.
yeah, it's easy to bring around too. So
That's a word for sure.
yeah.
So do you think that because you play it so much 2 player now, have you played it 3 or 4 since then? Do you think you'll feel like out of sync because there's other people involved?
Well, I think we usually sync up pretty quickly
Okay.
with other people. Well, it depends on the people, but like there was a couple of our friends that we played 4 player a lot, um, and so we would be in sync with them. But then I
Okay.
guess if they play with other people, then it depends who we play with. But I think usually we get back in sync. Well, I mean, usually being back when we used to play with them, we get back in sync after maybe one playthrough of the game if we mess up.
So
Because we always do multiple playthroughs.
I was going to say, how many of these can you fit in like a sitting? Like how much do you think you could play in like a 30-minute time window?
Well, I think I timed a game once early on it was a 4-player game, and we finished in like 12 to 15 minutes, I think. So I guess we could play, and if we lose, it would be shorter. So maybe 2 to 3 times, I guess.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah, this is another one that I have yet to try, but really did very well and was very popular. Caught on real quick. The Mind. You like that mental reading the thoughts of the other player. Interesting. Do you play chess?
No. Okay. Right. I don't like that you have to know so much to get into it.
That's fair. All right. So my second pick here is a 2-player version of a larger game, which is called Seven Wonders. The 2-player version is Seven Wonders Duel. 2-player only, a sort of drafting game for 2 players, which is an odd sort of mechanic. But the way that they set this game up is you basically build a pyramid of cards in a certain pattern. It's different for each age rather. And you start at the bottom of this structure, so you can only take cards that are revealed. So these other cards are face down, or even if they're face up, you don't get access to them until the ones below it have been taken away, which is reminiscent of some other basic card game I used to play when I was younger. I think my grandfather taught me. I forget what it was, but similar pyramid thing. Anyway, this takes really all of the categories and sort of structures and things from Seven Wonders in terms of the civil buildings and the war stuff, getting your army built up, the science, all those elements are in this, but it's just for 2 players, and it's a lot easier, I think, to decide what you want as opposed to getting a whole hand of cards in Seven Wonders where you don't know what might come back around to you. You can kind of see what's out there ahead of time, and it's only one other person that you're competing with. This is a great tug of war game. I am liking this one more every time I play it. In fact, my wife Lauren and I put it on our 10 by 10 challenge list this year because we wanted to get it played more. And I really think it's time to venture into an expansion for this one. We're winding down here, folks. This would normally be the part in the program where we would stop because normally on a board game holiday spotlight, we each talk about 2 games. But because we're celebrating the mothers here for Mother's Day all month long, we're going for a 3rd pick. Ambie, what is your 3rd and final pick?
So I realized all of my games are cooperative games that involve like mind games, and the 3rd one is the Ravens of Three Sahasri, which I think has a new retheme called something of Ember or something. Embers of. Wait, let me look it up.
What is the name of the game that you said? I didn't even catch it.
The Ravens of Three Sahasri. It was a Japanese game. Embers of Memory is the retheme of it.
Okay.
So that's probably the one that's more available. But I have the Ravens of Three Sahasri. I like the art on that better. Well, I guess the art on the new one looks nice too. But anyways, this is an asymmetric cooperative card game. One person has like lines of cards that they're trying to make. They have face down cards and they're making like a haiku type thing. It's like a poem. So they need to have the numbers add up exactly to 5 in each line and then exactly to 7 in the last line, or no, 5, 7, exactly to some number in each line.
5, 7, 5, I think is the pattern.
But it's not actually a haiku. It's some other.
Okay.
So it might be 7775 or something. So the cards are numbered 1 through 5, and they have different colors too. And then the cards have pictures on the like art with a grid, 2x2 grid, and like some of them are colored and some of them are grayed out. So the person who has the poem, they know what they need to get, and they have like cards in there already that they know what that is. But the other person doesn't know that. And so that the person who has the poem is trying to put cards onto the table face up, and or no, they're trying to take cards from the table to put into their poem, but the other player is putting cards onto the table face up for the other person to use.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
like, but the way they put them is a puzzle. Like they have to overlap with colors, and like the grid has to
Hmm.
match when they overlap it. And then there's like ravens that take your cards and do bad things, and there's special powers and stuff. So, um, yeah, it's like kind of mind gamey because the person who's playing cards on the table is trying to get cards for that the other person will want, but they
Right.
don't know what the other person wants yet. And then based on what the other person takes or like discards, then you can kind of see, oh, they didn't want that card, so maybe I should give them more of this other type of card, this other color.
And they
Because
don't
they
know if
need,
it's the color or the number that
yeah,
they
they
were
need
after, right?
like they need specific colors and specific number to add up.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like you get extra powers if you match up colors and stuff. So it's pretty complicated rules wise, and the rules aren't very clear. Although maybe in the reprint they are, but it's really fun. I
It
think
sounds very
like
interesting.
it's really
It's
interesting
unique.
if you like puzzly games and cooperative.
It
It's good.
almost it sounds a little bit like the Disney Hocus Pocus game that came out, I guess, last year.
I haven't
Um,
played that, so
it's not a grid thing, but
hmm
you can't communicate. It's cooperative, but you can't communicate, and
hmm
you're trying to get a certain layout of ingredients in the cauldron that are different colors and different types, like
hmm
suits, basically. So similar, like you don't know if the person is like, "Oh, I want the orange cards out," or "I want the
yeah, yeah.
Eye of Newt" or whatever. Interesting. I'll have to check that reprint out and see if that's available at my local game store, perhaps. All right, so one last pick for me here. This is actually also a game that's on our 10 by 10 challenge, I just realized, and that's the Flip and Right Cartographers.
Mm.
I love this game at all player counts because it really doesn't change the time of the game that much because everyone's doing their drawing at the same time. In this game, you have a blank grid map, and there are cards that are going to get flipped that have these different sort of Tetris style polyomino shapes on them. And they also are one of four types of terrain. There's villages and forest and like farm land or wheat and water. And then there's also monsters that can come out. And basically, you're just drawing these shapes on your grid. And there's always going to be four different sort of scoring conditions out for the game that you're trying to score. Like A and B is round one, and then maybe it's B and C, and then A and D, or I forget what the order is. But basically, every scoring condition will get scored twice throughout the game. Um, I love roll and rights and flip and rights. It's one of our favorite genres in this house for sure. And for this one, we like to use colored pencils, which I know a lot of people do because they recently had a new Kickstarter for extra maps, and one of the pledge levels, the all-in deluxe version, came with its own set of colored pencils, which I thought was a little bit absurd because you can get them at the dollar store, but whatever. Really fun one. Even actually able to play this one over Zoom. I've done that a few times with
Hmm.
friends remotely. Basically just say, here are the four cards that I pulled out randomly for the scoring conditions. All right, I'm going to take those out too, put them in front of me. So I'm seeing the same thing as you guys. And we just flip, just have one camera from above and make sure people can see what card it is. Are you a fan of this genre in general?
In general, before this last year, I didn't play mini roll and rights or
Okay.
like mini roll and rights. I haven't played Cartographers yet, but like
Oh, okay.
recently, I got into playing print and play games, and a lot of those were roll and rights.
That's right.
So I like
Another
solo
octopus
ones.
arm you have is in that print and play
Yeah,
roll and write segment. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a recent uh, addition to that. So, but yeah, like I think I'm liking the solo puzzle-y roll and rights, but I still don't think I'm into the multiplayer ones as much.
That's fair.
Um,
That's fair. Yeah, there's very little interaction usually in those games.
mhm.
What's cool about cartographers is that when you do pull out a card that's one of those monster ambush cards,
Oh
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
then switch maps with someone, and you're drawing these monsters on someone else's map, which can really kind of mess with their plans, and they give you negative points and whatnot. So there's all that.
Yeah, I want to try that one because I've heard good things about it.
I think it's on one of the online platforms. I'm pretty sure it's on like Tabletopia or something like that,
Mm.
or Board Game Tabletop Simulator, whatever, one of those things. All right, folks, we're going to start to wrap things up here. I do want to thank Ambie again for taking time out of her busy schedule to chat with us a little bit about some awesome games. I hope you folks learned something and maybe even check out some of the games that we talked about. Before we go, Ambie, can you tell us all about each octopus arm and where people can see all of your content?
Okay, so for the podcast, you can go to boardgameblitz.com. Also, the socials is at boardgameblitz. A lot of that. We're also on YouTube. On the Dice Tower, I'm on the Dice Tower. If you search Ambie on the Dice Towers, you can see the videos that I made on the Dice Tower, I guess. They have so many videos on the Dice Tower.
Yeah.
But for my song parodies, it's YouTube is Ambie Rona, which is the same as my socials on I'm Ambie Rona on like BGG, Twitter, Instagram, all the social stuff. And I think is that's most of what I have. I think because a lot of my stuff is under Board Game Blitz or Ambie Rona.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of little subcategories under there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, folks, I don't have as many tentacles out there as Ambie does, but if you are watching this on my channel, Board Game Dads, I'm still trying to get to that magical 100 subscriber mark to get that custom URL. So go ahead and subscribe to that and give this video a thumbs up as well. That's it for tonight, folks. My name is Anthony.
I'm Ambie.
And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hi.